Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are cracking open the strategic roadmap of a truly massive global financial institution.
We really are.
We're looking at their 2022 performance to figure out how they managed, well, frankly, historic financial growth, while at the same time anchoring their entire strategy in two huge and you'd think often conflicting areas.
Right. Digital transformation on one hand and a deep commitment to sustainability on the other.
Exactly. So that's our mission today.
And we're not just, reading profit reports. We're using this annual review as a lens. It's a way to understand how a legacy player, a real giant, stays relevant when there's so much uncertainty out there.
What kind of uncertainty are we talking about?
Well, everything. How'd they manage risks from, say, the global economic recovery, the looming threat of big tech trying to get into finance, and even really granular stuff like how quickly 5G infrastructure can improve how they deliver their services.
And when we talk about their success, we really need to put the numbers in context. This institution didn't just have a good year.
Oh, not at all. They had a landmark year. Let's just start with the hook for you, the listener. Their net income for 2022 hit an eye-watering $31.8 billion.
Wow.
And that number represents a 51.3% growth rate over the previous year.
A 51% jump.
It's huge. And to put that into perspective, their total credit portfolio, it didn't just grow, it blew past the historic $1 trillion mark.
$1 trillion in credit. That's just a massive number. So what's the official line? How do they explain absorbing that kind of growth? The source mentions 4 pillars.
They do. They define it as being built on proximity to the customer, efficiency, innovation, and a fundamental commitment to sustainability. But the real insight here, I think, is that these aren't separate goals.
Or all connected.
Exactly. The sustainability focus, for example, isn't just a PR play. It's actually driving that 51% growth. It's attracting all this ESG-mandated capital and locking in really stable finance for the long term.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Beyond the sheer profit number, what does that rapid growth tell us about their brand value? Profit can be cyclical, right? But brand equity, that's sticky.
Precisely. And the market completely validated their performance. Their brand valuation jumped by, 18.9% in 2022?
Almost 19%.
Yeah, pushing the total value up to $24.5 billion. And this surge is directly tied to those solid financial results, but also, and this is key, to improved customer satisfaction across all their markets. It shows investors really believe the strategy is working.
And that strategy, they describe it as intensely customer-centric. They use this phrase, focusing on the segment of one. That suggests a level of individual targeting that's, well, far beyond traditional banking.
That's the ambition. I mean, they are aiming for true hyper-personalization.
Yeah.
And to do that at their scale, you need a monster of a data engine.
So what does that look like?
We're talking about running 46 distinct predictive models, pulling in all sorts of external variables, and processing it all daily across over 104 million clients and prospects.
That's a lot of data.
The output is just staggering. It generates over 2 billion potential offers and 480 million targeted business referrals.
It's amazing to think that 2 billion tailored offers were created. I mean, that's basically a personalized pitch for almost every person in the United States and Europe combined, every single year.
It is.
But doesn't that level of targeting this segment of one border on being intrusive? How do they manage that line?
That's where governance and trust come in. And look, if they get it right, the personalization feels like proactive service, like a relationship manager offering exactly what you need before you even knew you needed it.
And if they miss?
It feels intrusive. That balance is the whole game for their data strategy. And their external recognition suggests they're getting it right. They received a top industry award for best practice in investor relations, which shows the investment community trusts them.
That trust is key, especially as we move into that second huge pillar you mentioned, sustainability. This is where the sheer scale of the institution becomes this powerful, almost planetary force.
It really is. The commitment isn't minor. I mean, this institution was recognized as the world's most sustainable financial institution in the Corporate Knights Global 100 ranking.
And that was at Davos, right?
Announced at the World Economic Forum in Davos, yeah. That placed them 15th overall. Not among banks, among all global companies, any sector, but the financial commitment. That's the real headline. Their sustainable credit portfolio hit a balance of $327.3 billion.
That is a huge number. Almost a third of their entire loan book is labeled sustainable, but $327 billion is a lot of money. How do we know it's rigorous? Isn't there a risk of, greenwashing?
That is the critical question, and the report seems to try and get ahead of that criticism by detailing the scope. Environmentally, the credit covers everything from energy efficiency to sustainable construction, water, waste management,
Okay.
and it also explicitly funds major sustainable agriculture programs, like one called the Program ABC, which is all about low-carbon farming. And socially, the money is going into education, health, local development.
So they're not just funding giant solar farms. They're actually underwriting changes all the way down the supply chain to the farm level. And do they quantify the impact?
They do. The financing for renewable energy projects alone avoided over 20.4 million tons of CO2 equivalent emissions in 2022.
And what does that mean in real-world terms for, you listening?
It's roughly the equivalent of taking 4 million passenger cars off the road for a whole year. That is a concrete metric of impact, not just a promise.
But impact like that requires really deep risk management, especially in agriculture, which is so climate sensitive. How does a bank manage the risk of lending to a farmer who might get hit by a drought or a flood?
They integrate some really advanced regional tools. They use something called the ZARC, which is essentially a climate risk mapping tool. In 2022, they monitored nearly 5,000 climate event alerts across almost 2,000 municipalities.
So they're actively using models to protect their capital.
Exactly, from climate volatility.
And the ultimate line in the sand for them seems to be their policy in sensitive biomes.
That's a powerful statement. The policy is explicit. The bank does not grant credit for rural properties in the Amazon biome that don't have environmental or land regularization, or if they have active embargoes for illegal deforestation.
So they are actively walking away from potential revenue.
They are. They're rejecting deals that conflict with their environmental objectives. It shows that sustainability is a governance rule, not just a marketing slogan.
That scale is impressive. But managing all that brings us right to the digital side of things, the tech that makes this all possible. What do the metrics tell us about their digital edge?
The acceleration is measurable in customer satisfaction. The key benchmark, the Net Promoter Score, it saw a huge jump, over 10 points. That's a 22% increase across every single segment.
From small business owners to the public sector.
Everyone. And that's clearly tied to digital performance. Their main mobile app has these consistently high ratings, 4.6, 4.7, in the major app stores.
And that improvement didn't happen by accident. They funneled $4.1 billion into technology in 2022 alone. What were the key deliverables?
Two really stand out: the instant payment system, Pix, and their leadership in open finance.
Let's start with Pix.
The transactional volume is just staggering. Over 3.7 billion transactions, moving more than 2.7 trillion in 1 year. That level of speed and liquidity, it just redefines the customer experience.
And the second one, open finance. That's a newer concept for a lot of people.
It is, but it's completely central to their future. Open finance lets you securely share your financial data, and this bank was the first one enabled to act as a payment initiator.
Why does that matter?
Because it means they can use that data to understand you better, offer those hyper-personalized services we talked about, and generate totally new revenue streams outside of just traditional lending.
And if open finance is about data, then AI must be the engine driving it.
It is, and it's deeply embedded now. They delivered 84 new AI solutions in 2022. And importantly, they were split strategically. 52 were for operational efficiency, automating back-end stuff, and 32 were focused specifically on the customer experience.
I do appreciate that amid all this high-tech talk, they didn't forget the human element. They implemented a specialized sign language interpreter service.
That's a vital point. That service, Libra's, recorded over 5,400 calls since they launched it in early 2022. It shows the tech investment isn't just about profit, it's about maintaining broad accessibility. It's part of their social mandate.
And that digital fluency brings us back to the big picture, the broader uncertainties in finance that their strategy has to deal with.
This is the central tension in the whole report. The key internal question is, will consumers embrace decentralized finance, peer-to-peer credit, cryptocurrencies, or will the big centralized banks remain the protagonists, with fintechs just sort of orbiting them?
And the bank is betting on itself.
Clearly, they see themselves retaining that central role by mastering these digital solutions first.
Moving inward then, let's talk about the controls, the governance, the talent that sustains this whole massive operation. Financial security is only as good as your digital security.
Absolutely. They invested heavily. Cybersecurity spending was over $32 million in 2022. A major initiative was deploying facial biometrics, which they offered to 9 million customers for secure ID in the mobile app.
And what about regulatory compliance? Data privacy is a global battleground now.
A huge focus. They reinforced compliance with LGPD, that's the local data privacy law, similar to GDPR in Europe, and they got an improved grade from the TCU auditor.
Federal Audit Office.
Exactly. So getting a top rating from them signals really robust adherence to security and privacy standards.
And how is this ethical posture maintained across such a massive workforce?
Internally, they constantly reinforce their code of ethics. 82% of the senior leadership completed the required reading and acknowledgement of the code. And on governance, they reported no confirmed corruption cases involving the bank in 2022.
But they are policing their partners.
Yes, they initiated 7 new administrative processes against third-party legal entities, which shows they are actively policing their supply chain.
Let's talk about that rigor. An institution this big relies on thousands of partners.
Which is why supplier governance is baked into their framework. They use a rigorous due diligence process for strategic contracts that assesses social and environmental risk before they sign anything.
And crucially,
They strictly enforce a policy against using any company that employs forced or child labor. This led to 356 sanctions against suppliers in 2022 for breaches. They are actively enforcing it.
finally, let's talk talent. They're essentially running a massive internal education system.
They are, through their corporate university. In 2022, the numbers were astonishing. Over 9.8 million hours of training delivered, 2.7 million courses completed. This is how you maintain an engaged workforce. An external consultant measured their employee engagement at nearly 64%.
So to synthesize this entire deep dive, we've seen a financial powerhouse hitting historic profits over $31 billion in net income. At the same time, they're committing immense resources to both digital leadership, like open finance, and huge quantifiable sustainability goals, like managing a $327 billion ESG credit portfolio.
The whole strategy just shows an institution that is actively, aggressively adapting. Their future strategy is all about models like Bank as a Platform, or BAP, and Bank as a Service, BaaS.
And for you, the listener who hasn't heard those terms yet, BAP is basically turning the bank's infrastructure into a white label service other companies can use. And BaaS is embedding financial services directly into non-financial apps.
It's about being everywhere. It's about maintaining that central role by making their infrastructure indispensable. And that brings us to the final provocative thought for you to consider. The core strategic tension in this whole report is how they will use this platform approach to counter the growing influence of big tech in financial services. Will these global giants just partner with this institution, or will they eventually try to seize the leadership role themselves, making the traditional bank obsolete? How does a legacy institution, no matter how big, maintain its lead when the fundamental rules of finance are being rewritten daily by tech firms that often operate outside the same old regulatory constraints?